Well, thank you, Sharon, for coming in here. If you guys have any questions, any concerns, anything that you guys want to talk about with Sharon, please feel free to reach out to her. She has an Instagram page.
Are you going to ask me what's my handle on Instagram? People always ask me that. Just look up Sharon Nevitt. I think it's everywhere.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you.
It's everywhere. You just have to look up the name. Sadly, I don't even know.
I was like, what?
I need young people around me to get into it. Half the time I'm, wow.
Welcome to another episode of Get Real Estate with Liz. And today I have a special guest, a friend of mine, Sharon Nevitt from PCMG. Sharon, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, I am Sharon Nevitt with Pacific Coast Mortgage Group. We have our main office in the village of Arroyo Grande. We have another office in Santa Maria. I have 5 loan officers that work for me, ranging from Spanish speaking. We have a veteran who deals predominantly in VA loans, first-time home buyer, agents. We kind of cover everything.
Mm-hmm. And Sharon, how did you manage to get into the mortgage business?
I've been doing it for a very long time. I would say the reasons I got into the business when I started are very different from today.
Right.
When I started, it was because it was a lifestyle I wanted to get into. We never owned a home growing up, and I just wanted to be in real estate. But now, in the last 5 to 10 years, it's more I want to be what fuels America. Real estate and home ownership really and finance drives America, and so we are a big part of that system, and I love that. Right.
So now, the same thing with me. Like I started just kind of as another job situation, and then it became like a purpose. That sense of rewarding. Feeling of helping others reach that American dream.
Yeah.
So Sharon, I know that you work with different banks. Can you explain that a little bit to the rest of the people that don't know? Because a lot of the times I have clients that are wanting to get pre-qualified and they just go to their local bank. And that way you can tell them the difference, why they don't qualify at a local bank versus, going with somebody like you.
So we are a brokerage, and the difference between a brokerage and a bank, to simplify it, is a bank only loans their money, and so you're subject to their guidelines. So if you have a particular scenario or you need a lower interest rate or anything like that, a bank isn't going to have as many options. Mm-hmm. I broker my whole job. We sell wires. So I look for the least expensive money of the day, whatever bank is selling that, and we wholesale through all the different banks. So as a wholesale broker, we have access to hundreds of programs that you would never get access to if you just walked into a bank.
Mm-hmm. So like, how you were saying you have different banks. So you look at everybody's scenario, depending on the circumstances, what's the best match for the individual?
Right. So if you're buying a mobile home, I may send you somewhere else for better financing as opposed to a condominium. Millions. We're on the coast, so if you're buying a $5 million home, that's going to go somewhere else. So a different program for every scenario. And condos, so you've got your manufactured homes, you've got your condominiums, you've got your single family residence, and your townhomes.
Right. Even though we live in the most expensive area here in California, you were telling me a story the other day about a first-time home buyer that bought a property for over $1 million. Can you tell us a little bit about that scenario?
Well, our first-time home buyers, believe it or not, are making a lot of money. We no longer have...
And they're not influencers.
No, the major employers are no longer growing up, Diablo, the Men's Colony, and Cal Poly. So now so many people work from home or can work remotely at major companies. So our first-time home buyers here make a lot. They actually do come right out of Cal Poly they make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So it's not how it used to be where it was just our employers. Now they could be working out of another state even and be living here.
Mm-hmm. And, for example, this scenario, this client that came up to you and they bought $1 million house. I know that the majority of the masses, I would say they can't afford over $1 million. But what are your, what's your opinion, or what's your, advice, for anybody that's wanting to buy a house for the first time?
Well, I am always going to, I'm never going to put anybody in a bad situation where I thought they couldn't make their house payment, but I'm always going to encourage home ownership. I started very young. So did you, owning a home.
18 years old.
I would scrape by to buy real estate today even. I love real estate. So I think that's our only opportunity to get ahead. So if there are ways to do it and you think you don't make enough, I tell people apply anyway, because sometimes you as their agent, you can get money, you can have the seller help buy the interest rate down. So now you're paying less than you might pay for rent. So I always encourage home ownership. I made my daughter do it early on, real young, and her friends. If there's a way to do it versus paying rent, you got to do it.
Like Nike.
Yes.
Just do it.
Just do it. Just do it. Because there's so many tricks, and I don't think our young people know the tricks that you and I know, and we kind of take it for granted that we know these tricks to get seller money to buy the interest rate down. Or there's just first-time homebuyer programs. If it's down payment you're missing, then down payment assistant programs. If it is strictly you can't make that housing payment, sometimes you're usually going to rent rooms if you're buying by yourself.
Or like you said, the rate buy down incentive that maybe
That's
the
big
seller,
And that's super common. It's not unusual. So you're not bringing something to the table that no one's going to accept.
Exactly. And right now, like you said, renting the room, for example, there's a lot of young kids that are, going to Cal Poly or Cuesta College or something like that. They can rent to their roommates, and instead of them paying somebody else's mortgage, they're paying their mortgage, and then they're being helped with that mortgage payment.
Right.
So there are incentives out there. You mentioned down payment assistance, is that something that a lot of first-time home buyers usually lean towards, or do you see more like they're trying to put a down payment?
Well, we get a lot of calls on down payment assistance. Everything comes at a cost. So if you want to put no money down and you need a down payment assistance program, what's going to happen is your interest rate's going to be a little bit higher. And so sometimes that's not that attractive. So when I tell people, well, we can back this down and you can put as little as 3% down and have a much lower interest rate, it's much more desirable. So 9 times out of 10, people will borrow. 3% is not that much of a purchase price. So they'll usually try to borrow or save that money or draw from their 401k. You can draw from anywhere. A lot of people now, this is so interesting, but this is the world we live in. They're cashing in Bitcoin. So I just had that. A guy was cashing in all his Bitcoin for his down payment because he had made enough on Bitcoin.
See, there's ways of getting
young
money
people.
somewhere.
Yeah.
So you know how you were saying about the 3%. A lot of the times when we say a percentage, our clients maybe they don't understand what 3% is, or 3.5%. It's 3,500 for every 100,000. So yeah, like if it's 200,000, it's 7, and then if it's 400, it's 14, and so on, right?
Yes.
And then, Sharon, for your first-time home buyers, how can they reach you, or how do they apply for it? Do you send them a link? Do you meet with them in person?
So everything is so digital now. People do come in the office, which we love. It's usually the realtors because they want to come socialize versus their own client. People like to apply for their homes now online in the comfort of their home. So we have our loan applications out all the time. We make sure that when realtors meet with clients, send them the loan application. I sent one this morning. Just somebody called me and I said, I'm going to send you my loan application. Fill it out when you're comfortable. It's non-invasive and we don't run credit and it doesn't go anywhere. Super secure. We just get it and can have an overview of what you're looking at. Because security is so important. But a lot of times people too are so fearful. They think, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be qualified to buy that house. Or it's the same feeling you get when you're trying to buy a nice car. And you think, what if they turn me down? But you don't know if you don't try. And usually
worst case scenario is no, which you already know.
It's always going to be a no with a a solution. It's
Right.
never going to be a no that you'll never buy because
Right.
no one does that.
Right.
No one looks into homeownership and says, I changed my mind.
But you know what? Banks usually do discourage clients like that. And I've noticed that because I have a lot of clients that come in to me and, months down the road, and they ended up buying a car because they went to a bank and they told them that they didn't qualify. And then later on, they see a post of me, giving keys to a 20-year-old. No, a 20-year-old that is a friend of them. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
How come they were able to buy and not me? But the problem was that they went to the wrong, wrong places.
Right.
Sometimes, information can be, given, how do you say it? The information that you are given is not the right one for you at that moment.
We can guide everyone. Anyone can be guided into homeownership. Really. We're never we're always going to give you a solution, even if you don't like the solution or it's not for you in the next 90 days. But in 6 months, it's probably going to work out.
And it's important to see where you stand right now. And if you qualify, great. If you don't, then, let's work on something that eventually will get you there to your goal. But I have noticed that a lot of people do get discouraged and they don't even try. They're like, for what? They're going to say no anyways.
Right.
But I'm like, no.
You got to
The last thing that you want to lose is hope. And let's find the reason as to why you didn't qualify. Is it the credit? Is it your debt? Or is it money down? Because it just depends on the scenario. What do you see, Sharon, on most of your clients that is the most important thing to get somebody qualified? Because a lot of the time people have a misconception about a credit score, for example. They think that you have to have 720 or that you have to put $50,000 down to buy a house, or, what's the most important thing that you would say? It's a qualification.
I would not even say your credit score, because we do have programs that go fairly low, and as well as people don't accurately know what their score is.
Right.
So you never really know there. The most important thing that you must have is a job.
Right.
You got to have a job. And if you're coming out of college, we can track your history and say, well, you were in your career path and you come out and you've gone into your career. So we can track that. But if you have no employment history because for whatever the circumstance was, then we do need to wait, especially when you start your own business.
Right.
Self-employed, you have to have a 2-year history. Sometimes I can have a 12-month history because you were working in that line of work. So there are scenarios that we can make that work. But a job, got to have a job. You have to have income coming in.
And less debt, right?
Yeah, right.
Because I feel like the most important thing, it will be like the debt to income ratio, right?
It is. And we get a lot of students because we're in a college community, but now we don't even use their student loans against them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we don't even need to worry about that because people will come out with hundreds of $1,000s in student debt, but we don't, that's not our concern. We'll drop that off because we know that sometimes those are actually removed in the type of work you've chosen. And so there's different that those could go away. So we just don't include them in your debt.
That's actually a good point that you mentioned, because there is a lot of students out, a lot of, I guess, in their 20s or whatever, that do have a lot of student debt, and they're afraid to even try to qualify because they have all this debt. So please reach out to Sharon or anybody that you're interested in buying a house, even though you have student debt, because she's saying that no, they don't even look at that.
Yeah, we usually, it doesn't ruin your credit anymore. So even if you haven't been paying,
and maybe not all lenders do that. So reach out to Sharon since she knows that, they don't look at that anymore. Yeah. That's awesome. And then Sharon, first time home buyers, it's a new year, 2025. I say this year is the year of, not giving up and just doing what you're supposed to be doing. What advice do you give to anybody, regardless of first-time home buyers or somebody that's buying a second house? Because I have clients that are saying that they have to sell their house to buy another one. Do you have anything specific that you would like to tell them? Like, just go ahead and apply, or just wait, or anything?
No. 2025 is going to be a very busy year. It started off very, very busy because it went from a sluggish 2024 to the phones are ringing now, and a lot of people are trying to buy. So I'm going to bring in the fire victims. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So they did right now. We have a program that for the people that lost their homes in the LA fires, they do not have, there's a down payment grant.
Oh, wow.
So they can move. They're going to be moving here.
Oh, wow.
I think they're going to start moving north, and there is a grant that they can replace their property with no down payment, because the grant will cover that for them because they don't have a home to sell. So, and they have a moratorium on their current house payment for a year. They just have to call their lender, and they have a moratorium on their taxes. So they're just, they need to follow up on that. But there are those programs. I think we're going to see so much activity here on the coast because of the fires, but also the new year and the new energy.
Right.
The energy is so big, and more homes are coming on the market.
Yeah, I feel like last year was just kind of like growth, learning, and being kind of a little bit stuck or whatever. But this year, like you said, there's low inventory already. And there's a house that comes on the market and it's already pending. And we're like, wait, what happened? And when they were sitting on the market, a few months ago,
right.
The rates, for example, we saw in the headlines yesterday, the rates dropped a little bit. Is that going to be also another thing that's going to impact the sales this year as well?
I think so. I think everyone is kind of used to the rates. If you've owned a home a long time and your rate is 2%, it's never good. It's going to be a bitter pill to get a new home. But income is relative to rates as well on the coast. So I see people making a lot more money. Right. But most people are used to the interest rate. If they get 6%, they're happy now. 5% would be a gift. And I think our market in 2025, it's going to drive down slightly. It is not going to be jumps. It's going to be little movements, an eighth here and an eighth there. It's not going to be, it'll be a headline, but we're not going to see it reflective of a massive drop, I don't think. I think we're just going to kind of trend down a little bit. But
adjust, basically.
We're going to adjust. But I think, buy your homes now. Everyone buy their homes now, because I don't think our prices are going down.
Oh, yeah.
They're going up. They're projected to go up. They're not even projected to flatline. They're going to go up.
Yeah, well, statistically, they go up 10 to 15% every year. And I don't, every day that I look up at the MLS, the new listings, they're still over 1 million. I'm like, what's going on? Like nothing. Right. I mean, very rare you see something less than that, like 500, 600. But even then, it's just kind of like, for the most part, all I see is 8, 9, 1 million, 2 million, 5 million. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They're not going down.
500,000.
Yeah.
For sure. It's over 1 million.
That's so crazy. So on the fire, going back to the fires, how you were saying about, not having a house for them to sell and then prorating it, their mortgage payment for a year. So that grant's going to basically cover their old debt, or is that the grant to come into the new debt?
The grant is going to be for the new debt. And of course, like everything, it will be clunky because it is a government grant. Yeah. And we don't know a whole lot about it. It just was unveiled, I think, on Friday. And, but we do know it's going to cover the down, because everyone, if you're going to move, a lot of times if you own a home, you're going to sell that home to buy the new home. So it's going to be your down payment to get into the new property. You'll have to qualify for the home loan on the new property. The loan would be minus the down payment, which is the grant. So you would be qualifying for the new home loan, but at least it will continue to create ownership, and you won't have lost, you'll have a home.
Do we know, I know maybe you don't know, but do we know how much of a grant that they're going to be given for the down payment? Is it the 3.5%, 5%, 10%?
The cap, I don't know. No. I don't know if it's going to be a small amount, or like I said, they're just starting to unveil it. Right. So it's going to have its issues for sure. Right. Hopefully it keeps up with our price point on the coast. I would imagine it would. Yeah. Because of where those fires were, it would be we're actually a little bit cheaper than over there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
A little bit. But anyways, let me see. You said you have a VA specialist in your office as well. And I do see a lot of military people around here, especially like up in San Miguel and Lompoc and even Santa Maria, is that, can you tell us a little bit of what's the advantage on a VA loan?
So a VA loan is 100% financing with no mortgage insurance. So VA loans are very structured for the veteran to have home ownership. So they can have low credit and there's a lot of wiggle room on a VA loan because the VA wants to loan to the veterans and want them to have home ownership. And so it's just a fabulous loan. And Robert Tolan is our VA specialist. And he too was in the military and now he's out and that's how he's giving back. And but
that's amazing.
It's he's our town hero, really.
Right.
But no, it's a fabulous loan. I've been doing them for years and years. And it's probably my favorite product. I know that it is by far my favorite product, but I know a lot of realtors get nervous and they think that, or even veterans, they say, they come and they say, well, I don't think anyone will accept my offer being VA, but I feel VA should be at the top of the pack because they're getting a loan. It's
Right.
black and white.
Right.
There's no gray area. You either have your qualification through your DD-214, which is your discharge papers. You have your qualification or you don't. So it's very black and white. And if we approve you, you're approved. It's going to close.
Right. Right. I think a lot of the times the misconception is appraised value and repairs. Because I used to be a lender. And I remember that, well, nowadays I see other realtors, like not taking my offer, not necessarily because it's me or anything like that, but because of the type of loan, like you said, VA, they get a VA or they get a conventional, they're going to choose the conventional because, they're less stricter on their guidelines versus on a VA, which I understand, like you said, it's black and white. It's going to get done no matter what. But Section 1 and Section 2, they used to be required, by the seller. Nowadays, they don't, right? So it's still negotiable.
Section 1 and 2, that's termite. That's your termite repairs. So your termite report, is broken out. Section 1 would be repairs that need to be done immediately. Section 2 are repairs that could happen down the road. Right. Both need to be addressed to make sure the property is sound. Now, that being said, the appraiser is the same appraiser as a conventional. I could order a VA and flip it conventional and end up with the same appraiser. So I don't think they go out and specifically tear the property apart as much as people think, especially now. I don't, it used to be where we would separate out. It would be a VA appraiser and it would be a conventional. Now they just hold both licenses. So it's definitely the lines are crossed. I have not felt the impact of the difference in the appraisal other than the fact that they are going to call out Section 1 and 2 to be repaired. The craziest thing of all is the veteran they can't pay for their report. They can't pay for the report, but they can pay for the repairs. But they can pay for the repairs, which seems so backwards. But I just had it.
I know. I would think it's the opposite.
Yeah, so you can pay for all the repairs and you can do that work up front prior to the close of escrow. But you can't pay for your report, which how much are reports? $100?
Yeah, $100, like $90,
repairs
$100.
Could be
$2,000
or $5,000
or more. I've seen like 15 grand. I was like, oh my gosh! Yeah. But no. And it's funny that you said that because so back then, like back in the day, it was required for the seller to pay for Section 1, and now they do have that option where they can negotiate whether it's a credit or the seller pays for it or the buyer pays for it.
Right.
So it's still the same thing.
Right. So veterans, try to buy a house.
Yeah. I always tell everybody, if you're a veteran, like don't get discouraged, just go apply.
Right. Go apply.
That's like the best of the best.
So many people apply and they're terrified and they think they're not going to qualify. Right. And we're like, you could buy now. Right. They think they're setting themselves up for a year down the road. Right. And we look at it and go, you're so highly qualified.
And not only that, but it's the best of the best. No mortgage insurance.
Oh, right. No mortgage insurance.
And then
the lowest interest rate.
Yeah.
It's the lowest interest rate program.
And then I wanted to ask you, because it's been a while since I've been in the loans. I heard somebody saying something about that there's no credit score. Is there or is there not? for a VA?
They say that they're not credit driven, but at the same time, if your score is, the banks have what we call an overlay. They're not going to let you have never made a payment in your life on your stuff and your credit's really bad, because the writing's on the wall. You're not going to make your house payment.
Right.
And VA has I think VA has the lowest foreclosure rate because they are ran so efficiently. So you're not going to see someone with a super low credit score. They're not going to get approved, because even though the VA administrative guidelines say we'll take let's say a low score of 500, that's a credit score. There's so much going on that credit.
Right.
It's not going to be acceptable to the bank. So whoever's funding that loan is just not going to allow that. So you're not going to get that loan through. But you're 6 months away from repairing that.
Right. But that's the reason why it's important to go talk to a loan officer and find out exactly where you stand, because if for whatever reason you don't qualify right now, let's work on.
And for VA, usually there's a compelling reason.
Right.
They were deployed, and I hate to say it, but not a lot of times their family, their wives have left them, or something terrible has happened. So when you see credit, the destruction, and maybe they were deployed, active military, usually it's something personal that took them down.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, they don't have control of, auto pay or whatever, all that stuff. And and if they're relying on somebody else to take care of their payments,
they don't know what's happening.
Yeah, they don't know. They think everything's all good and dandy, and then they come back, surprise, I mean, I'm not saying everybody, but
right. But that's a compelling reason.
Yeah.
And so with a good letter and a letter of explanation, we can fix that.
Jinx, double jinx, like my daughters, when we say the same thing at the same time.
Choke.
But and then also you said you have a Spanish speaking loan officer in
Jorge
in Santa Maria, right?
In Santa Maria. Okay. He's fabulous.
And where can they reach him? They reach out to you to reach out to him.
He's on the website, social media. He's so honest and so kind. I am very lucky to have him. Very lucky. His broker had passed away. And so he ended up, his whole office moved over to us. And he's just something else. He's so funny and so sweet. Yeah. And Spanish is his first language. Oh, really? I think I talk too fast for him, but he's like,
just, yes, yes.
Yeah, you want to work with him. He's so, I can't not talk about him and not smile, because he is so funny and so sweet. But he loves helping people. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I follow him on Instagram. He follows me too.
He just put our logos all over his Cybertruck.
Oh, really? I saw that. I saw that, but I wasn't sure. I thought it was maybe one of your what's it called? The cars that you drive off-roading?
He bought a Cybertruck and then put the PCMG logo on it. I'm like, I guess we get Jorge forever. It's on his truck.
You're like, yep, it's there. He's here forever.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Taylor does a lot of first-time home buyer. That's my daughter who works at the office.
That was the next one that I was going to say.
She ends up with some reason that seems to be her bucket. She ends up with a lot of first-time home buyer. We have a girl right out of Cal Poly, and she is actually assisting Robert and helping him. I do a lot of more high-end, more jumbo loans, and our jumbo pricing is insane. It's just because I'm in Rio Grande. So my area is going to be a little bit higher, but we just have somebody in every territory.
Right. And I actually like that about your company. So you have somebody that specializes on certain things, like your daughter, first-time home buyers, the higher end jumbo loans, for those people that don't know what jumbo loans you'll cover that right now. But then you have somebody speak Spanish, for somebody that wants somebody that speaks their language and feels comfortable, because even though, like say if I were to speak Spanish and I go with somebody that doesn't really understand my language, I feel like we lose somebody in translation, Oh,
for sure.
And so when you have somebody that speaks their language, it makes them feel a little bit more comfortable and more understanding and stuff like that. And then we have Rob. What's his name? Robert. With the VA loans, and he's an expert on that. I mean, he went to the military himself, so he's very, very knows everything about that, and not only like the lifestyle, the programs, and it's more like giving back and feeling rewarding.
Right.
So jumbo loans, for example, You said here in the Central Coast, our price point. What's the minimum on the jumbo loan?
I really should know this. I believe it's 8. We just
Well,
changed
it just changed.
It just changed. So I believe we're 856. So 800. Anything above 800,000, I'm going to put in a jumbo product. That's loan amount. So if you are buying in the millions and your loan amount is over 800, and to go backwards, VA will go up to. I closed one at 3 million.
A VA, really?
A VA loan at 3 million.
Ooh, wow.
So VA will go very high. They have a jumbo product, but you just don't see a whole lot of veterans who were in the military come out and can qualify because this guy happened to be a very big business owner in San Luis. So we used that and got him 3 million. But anything over 800,000, I'm going to put in a jumbo product, and that means that we've got nice low interest rates on those, but they're just high end loans.
Right.
So we can take jumbos up to 5 million. So if you've got
and constantly, the jumbo loan amounts change, and depending on the county as well.
Year, they go up.
Yeah, because we have San Luis Obispo County and then Santa Barbara County. And
Santa Barbara's lower than us, which is odd.
Yeah.
But they're a little bit lower.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Than San Luis.
So that's why it's very important to talk to a loan officer and know exactly where you stand, because every scenario, every client is completely different. Not everybody has the same credit score, not everybody has the same, job, pay, down payment, assets, reserves, because that's another thing. You have to have reserves on certain programs, right?
Right.
Reserves means like money saved.
Money saved.
Yeah.
Because if the bank size, if you lost your job, you can make 6 months worth of payments if you were a high risk or something like that. Taylor today is working with a first-time home buyer that is a traveling pastor.
Oh, wow.
And so we're having to do some interesting things to
creative financing. Creative financing.
We're having to be creative because of the way he's paid. It's just every single month is different. It's really hard to track.
Right.
And so every scenario is a moving target. No two the same. Knock on wood. They're just never. They're not always easy.
I remember like back then when the whole OnlyFans thing was going on, everybody's like, "Oh, we do loans on OnlyFans too," like influencers and stuff like that that don't have the security income for the past 2 years or whatever.
Right. Venmo. People get their money through Venmo
or Uber.
Uber. They're getting paid so different, but we've caught up. Bitcoin is a great example. We've caught up. So people get paid, especially, so let's say hairdressers and salon and things like that. You're getting Venmo. So we're having to track Venmo as a source of pay and income. Gambling is another thing that we've had. International currency. That is crazy because it depends on if our American dollar is stronger or not as strong as Australia.
Right. Interesting fact right now that you said Venmo and, other ways of paying like Zelle, Venmo, Cash App, Apple Pay and all that stuff. Usually when they're self-employed, they usually get that to their bookkeeper, right? Is that something that you guys, how do you explain it? Is that something that goes in the taxes or is that after, like on the side?
So I think you're asking two things.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to.
Yes. If you get paid by Venmo, and I believe Venmo is taxing you now, but your accountant's going to get that.
Right.
Because that's going to be your record of pay.
Right.
So yes, we're going to use that as a source of income. Your accountant's going to put it on the taxes. I don't always need your tax returns, but you could be being paid through Venmo and then it's going to move out. But then some people don't move it out. So we can use Venmo as a source of savings as well. And I've had people have money in their Venmo and they say, well, I'm going to take it out of my Venmo and move it. You only move Venmo to your checking or savings.
Yeah, correct.
So it's a paper trail. So we will we'll track it right out of there.
And that's
I guess
that was my question. Usually when somebody is self-employed, they usually get all their documentation of how they got paid, whether it's check, cash, whatever, and then they verify it with their CPA. But like say they did their taxes last year, right? And then 6 months down the road from now, like in June, we do a profit and loss. So you can use those statements from Venmo and stuff like that, like you said.
They will on their usually QuickBooks. So they'll be settling their QuickBooks theoretically every 30 days. So they're going to source everything that came
like their
into
profit
Venmo.
and loss.
Yes.
Yeah. And then if they have it saved there, then they can be used as assets.
Right. Right.
See?
Look
creative,
at you.
Creative
Very
financing.
good. Yeah.
So if there's a way or there's a will, there's a way.
There's nothing we haven't
Yeah.
seen. I think I can honestly say there's nothing we haven't seen in somebody's situation. So if they come to us and they feel like, oh, I'm the worst. I had this happen and my kid was sick. It's never the worst. I've seen everything. I've seen people come right out of prison, right out of, because of where we live, right out of the Tascadero State.
Yeah. Tascadero State Hospital, Men's Colony, or Avenel, Salinas, all around it, Wasco.
Right.
But
it's paper, so we don't judge, because really everything is you're going to work or we're going to work through it. So it's never personal.
But another question, another thing that just came up right now that you said that if somebody comes out of prison, for example, or even maternity, because there's a lot of people that go off on maternity leave, they come back. I try to tell my clients, as long as you're in the same line of field or a letter of, that you're going to go back to work, it should be fine. Is that correct? Because they can go back.
Oh, yes.
Even though they just started a new job this month, right?
Right. W-2, you're on the job. We need to see a pay stub that you're on the job.
Right.
So you'd be able to buy.
Right. But if they haven't worked for the last year, you can use previous years, right?
Well, where there's always a reason they haven't worked. We cannot use, if you were home because you had a baby, that's legitimate. We can't judge against that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, as long as there's like some kind of explanation that's legit, like they went to prison for a year or two or whatever, but they always had.
I call them my ghosts because they have nothing that year.
Yeah. Exactly. But previous years.
Okay.
Yeah, but previous years.
And they're in that line of work and they come out, and as long as you get a job and you're W-2 and we explain that
the reason
you were not working in the years past for personal reasons, whatever, then you can buy with the new income.
So okay. And then another thing, you're W-2, but you changed fields in work. So say I was a cook, for 10 years. And then all of a sudden, I'm a hairstylist, working, not self-employed, but working for somebody, and I get W-2. Do I still have to wait 2 years for that line of field?
Your wild swing? Usually, they're not going to pick it up. Especially because those are working jobs. I think we sort of do.
And the reason
they cared when you were doing it, probably.
Right.
I think we did away with a lot of that because people do.
She's telling me I'm old.
Change their lines. No, I'm thinking about it too, because it was an issue for me. And I used to I would be like, well, did you answer the phone at both places? Let's call you a secretary. Just something to
justify.
You did. I don't think anyone doesn't want to see someone own a home. Right. I think they kind of did away with the stuff that just didn't make sense. It was just not logical that we would say, you can't buy a home because you switched two jobs that literally have lateral pay.
Yeah.
So why are we
and to better yourself?
Can't buy a house. So kind of went away with the stuff that just was ridiculous. It didn't make sense.
I just want to make sure, because I do have a lot of clients out there. They're kind of hesitant because they just started a new job, or because they have like 5 different jobs at the same time, and doing the Uber, doing all this stuff. And I always kind of tell them just find out from a loan officer, because you just never know. It might just work out. Right. And if for whatever reason it doesn't, then let's find out why not.
Right.
So if you start a new job, reach out to Sharon or your local lender that you want to work with, and get you pre-approved so you can get your house.
Yeah.
And Sharon,
Yes.
Do you have like a special quote or a special story that you want to tell us? Some kind of highlight of last year that can inspire anybody?
Oh my gosh, a highlight of last year. Well, we learned a lot. We did. We learned a lot. We learned some really great stuff. We handled a whole lot of first-time home buyers, which was amazing. We had a handful of veterans that certain things we didn't know. We did learn a lot because we had veterans.
It's always a learning experience.
Veterans on disability are tax exempt. We didn't know that. So a certain percentage, and we were so thrilled that this girl got
That's
that. She's
amazing.
a single mom, and she's out of the military, and she was 100% disabled, and so she's tax exempt. I did not know that, and we looked it up, and they had changed the rules. They had just recently in California, because every state can have their own rule.
Yeah.
And so I would say we helped a lot of homeowners. It was really exciting. A lot of first-time homeowners. And they, we had some silly people, but they were happy.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't be happy, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Talking about California, do you guys do loans in California only, or are you guys open to any other states?
So we only loan in California. I do have a license that allows me all over the U.S., but I have to have every other state has their own little rule. So if I were to go, I believe Arizona is a brick and mortar. That means I would have to have an actual office location. You cannot just be satellite. So every state has its own requirement, and I don't want to dip into having any liability in another state. I would rather keep it to the professionals, because no one's as strict as California. And if you don't live here and you want to do business here,
and you're from somewhere else, yeah.
So no one's as strict as us. I don't want to open us up to liability in any other state right now, unless I had a person over there that was specializing. I like to keep everybody doing what they do best, and we don't need to move outside of that.
And Sharon, where can they find you? I know you said in the village of Rio Grande. Where exactly, if you want to?
We are right downtown on Bridge Street. So the old McClintocks are right across from that.
And do you have any special people in your office? Your little doggies?
I do. I have a dog I bring to work every day, Kobe Bryant. Most everybody knows him all around town. They don't even know me. They know my dog. And
I see her walking and I'm all honking at her.
That dog goes to work with me every single day since COVID. And my daughter brings her dog in, Cheddar, who's a giant lab. I don't encourage everyone to bring their dogs, but we do love dogs. We are very supportive of Woods Humane Society. We did a giant fundraiser for them. And we're trying to help them now with fires and things like that to help with the animals. And we have the Santa Maria location, and that one, to my knowledge, no one's bringing dogs in yet.
To that one? No, nobody yet. And then also, Sharon's very involved with the community. She was always helping us out with the Women's Council of Realtors, with the board of, the association, Pismo Coast Association of Realtors, and I'm sure Santa Maria and other places. So she's very, very involved, and you see her swag everywhere, and her billboard over there if you're hiking.
What are you talking about?
Don't forget to see her billboard and tag her on it when you pass by the Bob Jones Trail.
We just put the dogs on there. We just changed the billboard.
Yeah, I saw the bill with the review and the dogs, and you guys. Very cool, very cool. And a quote or anything?
I don't have a quote.
Anything inspirational to end it?
I don't know. I'm just so lucky to be around all my agent family,
Right.
I think the last few years has shown us how important our friendships are among our own community of agents.
Relationships,
Yep, our relationships for sure. I'm glad we work like that. Our coast, we're such a small town.
Yeah, we are.
We definitely care about each other.
Yeah. Coffee, lunch.
Yes.
Everything, text messages, memes.
Yeah.
Food. We bribe each other with food and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool.
And supportive of our own kids.
Right.
I see your girls, and I very love that.
Right. And her daughter. Well, thank you, Sharon, for coming in here. If you guys have any questions, any concerns, anything that you guys want to talk about with Sharon, please feel free to reach out to her. She has an Instagram page. Are you
going to ask me what's my handle? on Instagram? People always ask me that. Just look up Sharon Nevitt. I think it's everywhere.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, what's
Yeah,
your...
it's everywhere. You just have to look up the name. Sadly, I don't even know.
I was like, what?
I need young people around me to get into it. Half the time I'm, wow.
Or just ask me and I'll send you her direct
There you go.
Instagram. But follow her, Robert, her daughter, and what's the guy?
We got
speaks
Jorge,
Robert,
Taylor, Josie, Alice, and we're adding 2 more next month.
There you go.
That's a secret. I can't tell you about that yet.
Oh.
Yeah.
So follow them on Instagram. Reach out to them at any time if you have any questions, concerns. Get pre-qualified. Get the link and see exactly where you guys stand, because you never know. You might qualify for something right now and you think you don't, or if for whatever reason you don't, it's okay. Don't get discouraged. Don't lose hope. And we're here to help you eventually, build that goal of ownership. So thank you.
Thank you. That was fun.